I can do it. Oh, all right.
Oh, hi. This is Workshops for Moms, and we are here at 5 o'clock this afternoon. And Workshops for Moms is brought to you every Thursday. And this week, because we're in the afternoon, next week we'll be in the morning at 10 o'clock. So we alternate between the two times because our speakers come from all regions of the US and overseas. And we know moms are in all of those time zones too. So it gives us a chance to reach you in some time that is convenient to you. So I'm Tracy Cheney, and I have the privilege of introducing to you our landscape architect who, now that it's springtime, you are going to want to hear what Jena Jauchius has to share with us, because her specialty is making nature spaces for children. So if you've got a backyard that you've just been wondering what to do with, she's got it. And she has designed for preschools and all kinds of different spaces, even indoor spaces, to bring children into nature. And she's going to share with us why that's so important. And now that it's spring, we're all kind of thinking about, yeah, time to get out and do some gardening and some yard work. So Jana, take it away. And yay, we're going to hear some great ideas for spring.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. As Tracy mentioned, I'm a landscape architect and nature play expert. For about 23 years now, I've been designing all sorts of nature-based children's play, learning, and therapeutic spaces. So like nature play areas, whether they're in Montessori space or a public park. I've designed outdoor classrooms and different learning landscapes, as well as sensory gardens for children. I've even done a few indoor nature-based playscapes. So I've done a ton of work in design, but now I teach parents and early childhood educators how to create sensory-rich nature play spaces wherever they are to grow children's minds, bodies, and spirits. And I would be happy to share my slide deck now. It's going to take me just a second to get organized.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Let's see. Tracy, can you see my,
I can
it's
see.
going to have to stay on my Canva view there.
Okay.
Can you see that there?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I've been a landscape architect, nature play expert for a long, long time and have a wide variety of experience, but I will tell you, being a mom is my favorite role. And I have a set of twins who just turned 8 years old. I cannot believe it. And I'll tell you, they have taught me more about my work than any professional experience ever could. Really, it's been so fascinating and such a joy to be their mom. And um, that's why I love workshops for mom. I love talking with moms. I mean, at the core of it, we want what's best for our kids, right? We want them to be healthy and happy and to have fun and enjoy their lives, to discover what lights them up, to really enjoy their learning and to be curious about everything. And ultimately, so I invite you to think about, I mean, as I'm talking, you're probably coming up with a few things in your own mind about your children and what you want for them, but ultimately, I mean, I think it's safe to say we all want the brightest future possible for our kids. And so through my work as a landscape architect, working on children's play and learning spaces, I've realized there's really one big factor that us moms need to understand and to pay attention to so that we can better help our kids have a happy childhood and to help set them up for a happy, productive adulthood. And that one thing, that there's a key thing and that is their nervous system. Their nervous system also must be happy. That's the key. And so I'd like to give you a little primer on the nervous system because it's a really complicated system in our body. Essentially, our nervous system helps us do everything needed for survival, like breathe and think and move and eat, and all of these activities that are essential for survival and living out our lives. It's also our body's way of receiving information from the world around us. And it all starts with our senses. And so all the work that I do is all based in our sensory systems. And so we have millions and millions of sensory receptors on our body and in our body that are constantly picking up environmental information. That information travels through our network of nerves. You see those little yellow noodles there on the screen, to our spinal cord, on up to our brain. And our brain then um, um, filters, it interprets, it processes all that information in order to understand our situation and what's going on around us. And then the brain sends the message on back out through those same channels, and it tells us how to react, how to make decisions. Essentially, this process informs every waking moment of our lives, and it's all happening at lightning speed. We take it for granted that our nervous system is functioning as it should, or in the way that we are wired to. And so it's so, I cannot underscore how important understanding nervous system health is. And so in childhood, I mean, childhood is such a magical, rich time because they are literally soaking up all the information they can about their world. I mean, it's their purpose. Every sensory system is on overdrive. I mean, from the moment they pop out, that is their mission, is to get as much sensory experience as possible. The more information their bodies process, the bigger the database, and I call it a database, of information that their bodies have, their brains have, so that when they encounter a new situation, maybe a new sensory experience, they have that database of information to draw on to help them move through this new experience. And so being able to do this, having that big database, helps children have a smoother, more enjoyable, more centered life experience. And so what happens when children's nervous systems are imbalanced? They are in fight, flight, or freeze. And so essentially this is a survival mode. This is just bare bones survival. Their entire state of being is in arrest because they can't really do anything, because their systems are focused on just getting through that situation. And so they cannot do all the other great things that they should be doing in childhood, like playing and learning and connecting with others. It's really hard to do that when you are when your systems, maybe unawares to you, your systems are in survival mode. And so what are some of the causes? And it's, I'll tell you, it's the same for children as it is for adults. Lack of sleep, eating too many processed foods, too much screen time. That's a big one. Not enough activity or movement, not enough connection, which is also right now a big deal. Connection with family, parents, nature, themselves, oneself. And then the stress that comes in on a daily basis from all directions, whether it's a bully at school or something like that. There's children experience a lot of stress and so on. And again, it's the same for adults. And so there are a lot of things that we can do, and nature play is one of those tools that parents can have in their toolbox to help balance a nervous system that is dysregulated. And so I'm going to talk a little bit on how we do that, because what we want to get to is a healthy nervous system, a nervous system that if it's out of balance, it can get itself back into a calm state. And so kids can do the lovely things that they do. And so with a healthy nervous system, they can access that natural state of flow, where they can be in deep, rich learning and growth, where they can be in a meaningful, expressive play. They can be more imaginative and creative. They can more easily connect with others, whether it's you or other family members, siblings, friends. They can connect with nature. And most importantly, they connect with themselves, right? And so this state right here, this is where they want to be. This is their homeostasis, and their bodies are always trying to get back into the state of balance. And so what can we do? What can we as moms do to help our kids maintain a happy nervous system, or if they're out of balance, to get them back into a happy state? And that is, the more we can get them using their senses, engaged in sensory ways, to get them outside more, that is going to help balance their nervous system. So, and nature is so important in this equation, and it doesn't have to be out at a park or a forest or a beach or anything like that. It can be in your backyard. It can be very simple, easy to get to nature spaces. Maybe, maybe you've got a place indoors with a lot of sunlight and fresh air. It doesn't matter, but the natural elements, those are essential because nature offers the most rich, beneficial sensory experiences that are available. I mean, it's how we have evolved as humans. We've been outside. I mean, it's just recently, since the Industrial Revolution, really, that we've spent more time indoors. And so nature's restorative. I mean, we know this when we are at work and we're getting stressed out. Maybe we go for a walk around the block in the fresh air. Maybe on our day off, we go to the beach or we watch a beautiful sunset. That's nature helping restore the health and balance of our nervous system. And so let's move it on to your kiddos and get into their play spaces. So quick question for those of you listening here. I want you to think about this. What do your kids love to do, inside or outside? And what are their interests? What do they love? What activities do they get totally immersed in and the hours just fly by? I want you to hold that answer in your mind. And it can be one thing, make it easy. Hold that answer in your mind as I go through the next set of slides. And then I'm going to follow up a question. Being a mom is really tough. It's more than a full-time job. We all know this. And it's spring. Summer is just around the corner, which also means summer break's just around the corner. And you might have some oncoming anxiety about what the heck are you going to do with your kids for 3 months or 2 months? How are you going to keep them happy? How are you going to keep them engaged? How are you going to keep them learning? How are you going to keep them off of their screen so much? And so here's some ideas. I'm going to walk you through what nature play is. So nature play, for those of you who aren't familiar with this concept, this tool, I'll tell you, it's so incredible. Nature play essentially uses natural materials, features, and settings to create a really wide variety of play experiences, learning opportunities, and it has incredible therapeutic value. And of course, it goes back to that nervous system health that I've been talking about, but it goes well beyond that, especially if you have a child with additional support needs, if you have a child with experiencing neurodiversity, autism. Nature play can be a very effective tool in balancing their nervous system and all sorts of other benefits. And as I just mentioned, nature play gives kids the necessary healthy sensory stimulation to grow and develop in their own way, because all kids are built differently, all kids are wired differently, and nature play meets them where they are and is such an amazing collaborator in their play experiences. And so just to hit on the tip of the iceberg of the benefits for nature play, I've been talking about brain development, nervous system health, creating neural connections. Nature play does all that. It helps build body confidence because kids are moving in different ways, and it helps build motor skills, gross and fine motor skills. Because kids' hands are in the dirt, they're playing with plant material and other natural elements, water. It helps boost their immune system. It also can increase their language and communication skills. They want to talk to you about what a butterfly looks like, what a butterfly is doing. If they're working on their words, you can work with them to expand their vocabulary by talking about what they're doing, being out in nature, what they're looking at, what they're playing with, and that sort of thing. It's really amazing. And then it can spark imagination and curiosity like no other. It helps them self-regulate their own emotions and behavior, which leads to a better sense of independence. And then it helps them feel connected. Um, Again, to you, to family, friends, siblings, others, to themselves, and with nature, of course. So I always get asked this, what does nature play look like when it's at home? And I always say it's going to be different for every one of you because everyone has a different family structure, family dynamics, home life, home environment, that sort of thing. So nature play can be anything that you want it to be when it's at home. And that's the beauty of it. So if you do want to create a more natural play and learning space at home, I give you my pro tip. You're going to start easy. Um, go back to that question I asked you earlier. What is it that they love? What can they spend their time doing and get totally lost in? Think about that and then create one space built around that love. And that's exactly where you start. And for those of you who want my free gift, it goes in a lot deeper on this key to creating irresistible nature play spaces. And so the work that I do is all sensory based. And so people are often surprised when I say, there's more than five. So like we have the classic five senses, but we actually have more than five senses that really contribute to our ability to understand and navigate our environment. And so I say there's seven senses. Their children have seven senses that their play and learning space needs to engage and stimulate and build. And so the last little bit of my session, I'm just going to hit each of the seven senses really briefly and give you a few ideas for each one so that you can start integrating this into your child's play space. So sense of sight. How many different ways can you increase the visual interest of your space, whether you bring out tools like a magnifying glass or a kaleidoscope? The image on the right is $5 wind spinners from Hobby Lobby. Can you do a little outdoor mural space? Can you do outdoor chalkboard, colorful plantings? There's all sorts of ways, artwork, sculpture, there's all sorts of ways to bring in visual interest. Touch is amazing. The images I have here are a fairy garden. There's so many different ways to bring in different textures that kids are going to be working with their fingers and hands and bodies. So, fairy gardens or loose parts. I talk about loose parts a lot. That's go to my Facebook page. You'll find a lot of information there. Mud kitchen. This is probably my number one all-time favorite space to create, no matter where you are, whether you're home or early learning center, for example. Mud kitchens are, they hit all seven senses. They stimulate all seven. And so kids are using different tools. They're using different materials and natural materials to do all sorts of different things. But, get on Pinterest and look at ideas for mud kitchens, and you will find something that will likely work for your family. Taste evidence show that if kids are involved in growing their own food, they will be more likely to eat it, which leads to short and long-term health benefits. So if you have a small pot of herbs, if you want to plant thornless raspberries, if you want to have a pot with a cherry tomato or cucumbers or something like that, whether you have a dedicated space or want to integrate edible plants into their playscape, they'll be more likely to eat it. It's amazing. It's amazing how that works. So smell, often what comes to mind is fragrant plantings. Lavender is known for its aromatherapy qualities, but there's a ton of others. No matter what hardiness zone you're in, there's all sorts of different fragrant plants. If you choose plantings, if you want to incorporate more plants, just go online and Google the name of the plant plus, toxic for kids, just to make sure that anything that they put in their mouth is not going to be harmful for them. Again, if you have questions, just reach out. For smell, I also say digging activities because we're all innately wired to there's something about the smell of earth that really kind of it speaks to us, right? I mean, all of us, but with kids, it's even more so. So if you have a space for them to dig and some tools for them, it's a incredibly beneficial activity. Sound could be wind chimes. You could use bamboo, water play, sand play, all of these things that you can bring in, whether it's music or nature sounds, or maybe you even have a picnic table and you have family dinners outside. Sound of your family talking, having conversations. And so the last two, number 6 and number 7, parents don't often know as much about, and they're both body awareness senses. So the vestibular system is located in our inner ear. It has to do with motion and gravity. So um, are we right side up? Are we are we upside down? Are we sideways? That's our vestibular system, tells us where we're at in space. And so activities like swinging, running, jumping, spinning, rocking, crawling, rolling, all of these activities feed children's vestibular system. So the more things that you can include in your child's play space for them to move, the more they're going to be able to build their vestibular system, which leads to better body confidence. And then the last but not least one, because I find this one really fascinating, is our proprioceptive system or proprioception. And it has to do with a couple things. So it has to do, it's in fully internal sense. There doesn't require any outside information, but it's our body system that tells us where we're at in space relative to the things around us, or where our limbs are at relative to the rest of us. And it also has to do with the use of force to do an activity. The example I always give is our proprioceptive system tells us how to pick up a paper cup of water without squishing it or without it letting it drop through our fingers, right? So our brain communicates to our muscles, joints, ligaments, all these things, all the way down to our fingers, the pressure it takes to do these activities. And so something as simple as using gardening tools, tying our shoes, working with a nature loom, picking flowers. The image on the right is my daughter, Alvy. She's pushing a wheelbarrow filled with water across our sensory path. Now she's pushing and pulling, which is a proprioceptive activity, and she's maneuvering this thing across a very uneven surface, which requires balance and strength. And so her little body is getting a ton of proprioceptive input. It's such a good activity it's such a good therapeutic activity that is masked as play, right? So she's having fun doing this, but she's also building her body. It's amazing. So I have a ton of information. I'm going to wrap up my session, but if you do want more, I do have a free gift. We'll put it in the comments, and feel free to grab it, and it will get you started out right. The easy way, the key to creating an irresistible play space, nature play space for your child. It's geared toward your child. And you know where to find me. I'm on Facebook, and as for Nature Play, I'm with Workshops for Moms. And with that, Tracy, I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to stop it. There we go. And are we ready to turn it over to you? What would you like to do?
Well, yes, but I have to mention that now I've got to say it right.
I know it's a mouthful.
That's a new sense for everybody, right? Proprioceptive. Yes,
Yes.
proprioceptive.
Proprioceptive system. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't even talk about that. I mean, I'm a teacher and we don't talk about that, but it really does come into play with something that I want to mention today too. And it's so interesting. I mean, because we're talking about children and all of their senses and how that all plays into school success. So if you could just talk a little bit, I mean, yes, you mentioned at the beginning when kids are feeling in balance and calm. Well, of course, that otherwise they're in flight, fright, or freeze,
All right.
which is not a great space to be in for school.
It's not.
But I
No.
feel like so many kids are.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and you see these things in lots of different kids. I mean, there's so many different learning styles. Some kids need to move to learn, like in order to hear you properly and to integrate that information so it's meaningful for them. They might need to move their bodies at the same time. So you'll see kids bouncing or kicking their legs or something like that, and you might think that they're not paying attention or something like that, but they're giving their body the stimulation they need in order to participate in class.
Well, I call those popcorn kids.
They are popcorn kids. Yeah.
And being
Yeah.
an art teacher, I can make those things possible because you can stand up to do your artwork, and you
Yes.
recognize those kids. And where we've cut recess off, even for small children, because we've got to read and write and have such a demand on that. Um, I mean, we're just doing such a disservice to kids.
We are. Yeah. And recess shouldn't be considered just for letting off steam. Kids need to move their bodies. It's an absolute necessity. And so if they don't get to do it, then they aren't feeding their nervous system so that they're balanced, so that they're on this heightened state, and they just cannot function the way they need to. And it's like you say, it's doing them a real disservice. And so that's the thing. And the proprioceptive, the last two senses, I learned those from occupational therapists in my research and designing for autism. Otherwise I wouldn't know them either. And so even there's there's so many ways that all of us can look at children from this angle and find ways to integrate it in our work with them, whether you're a teacher or a therapist or a designer or what have you. So I mean, it's just good information for anyone who works with children in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just mentioned too that you're designing for autistic kids,
Yeah.
designing sensory spaces for us autistic children.
Yes. Yeah. I've done.
Advice for, well, either parents, but also as teachers. I mean, you have a wide range of kids in the classrooms now. And unfortunately, as an art teacher, which usually you have a really, bouncy kind of experience, that is just sensory overload for
It
autistic kids.
is.
And so,
It is.
trying to find a balance between the kind of stuff that I like as an art teacher and what most kids respond to, and then to be able to help the kids be able to have an art experience, but without, you walk into the room and, it knocks them out. So what
Yeah.
are you doing in your work?
Oh,
A more
yeah.
rich environment or a less sensory rich environment?
And you're right, it depends on the child, on the person, because autism manifests differently in every single person. And so it is very challenging to design a supportive environment for all kids, because we all want them all together. We don't want them separated. That's how it should be, is together. So there's another layer of considerations I take in, like talking about sensory. I create sensory kind of nodes where everything's multisensory. So, but if you take it in terms of like little nodes, where maybe this node focuses on visual stuff, this node focuses on sound stuff, that way, some kids who have sensitivities, they can avoid what bothers them, or what makes them uncomfortable. Like if sound bothers them, they'll stay away from the sound area and they'll go do something else, or maybe there's a cozy space they can go to. So that's one of multiple things that I bring in on top of nature play and sensory spaces. So yeah,
It,
and I found that designing for children with autism is good design for all people, all children, because they're the most sensitive. And so when you design for them, you realize that it translates really well, because all people have some sensitivities. And you're just being more supportive about people who really they're just more, I don't know how to describe it right now. They're just more sensitive to their environment, and they don't experience it the same way that that I use the word typical. And so yeah, I will say that there's another level and layer of design considerations I take into.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to give a quick hug here.
That's okay. I mean, I've had to switch computers and I've had people walking in and out. Hello there.
All right. Yep. Edda's headed off to her class. Edda, hey, take the dogs. Hey, take the dogs. Okay. All
Hey,
right.
so for moms and grandmas here at Workshops for Moms, then our kids are in and out and grandkids are in and out. And
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
computer woes all day, so I have switched rooms back and forth, borrowing people's computers and trying to do everything. So we get it. We're kind of casual
Yeah.
about it because
Yep.
we're not in an office space and we're not in a professional studio. And we've all had to learn this technology. As a teacher, I had to pivot. So I'll introduce myself, Tracy Cheney.
Oh, can I introduce you?
It's fine. I'm okay.
Yeah, I want to. Okay, so all right, Tracy, this is Tracy Cheney. I have the honor of introducing Tracy Cheney. Tracy is a master teacher, having taught thousands of kids over the decades, pre-K through 8th grade, 4 generations, starting with Gen X. Tracy is a California Elementary Art Teacher of the Year. Her program was honored as a California Exemplary Program. And Tracy was selected to serve on the California State Education Committee to write the new art standards for public schools adopted by the California legislature in 2019. Having worked in 14 schools and taught hundreds and hundreds of kindergartners, Tracy knows it's important to reach the parents of small children ages 2 through 5 in this age of handheld electronics.
That's so true.
It is true.
To you, used to think it was as a dinosaur, but really it's cutting edge. And if you pair it with what we've just been talking about with Jena, I think you'll see why. All right, now, oh, guess what? I think I can make, okay, yes, I'm on not my computer, but we've gotten my slides over to here. So what I want to talk to you today, parents, yes, I am targeting the really little kids right now, but this has big implications for all of your elementary school age children, because what we don't get here at this point affects them all the way through. And because I'm one of those unusual teachers in a school, and that I work with the kids, depending on the school, from pre-K through 5th grade or 6th grade, depending on the school. And then I've taught middle school art too. So I've seen the ramifications of what's happened. And that's why this is just a passion project with me. And what I realized is that we can reach parents now through Zoom that we could never talk to before until you came to school. So the really important thing here that we're going to talk about, it seems so basic, and it is because it is foundational basic. So you've already got it within you, because we're all humans. We just need to really pay attention now because we have this huge thing called computers and iPads and phones and all this stuff that we're putting in the face of babies now. And what is happening is we see it in school. And the reason I'm really wanting to talk to you about it now is because school can't make up for you what doesn't happen before you get to school. So these 5 years, whether it's playing outside or inside, is that we can't lose track of some really basic human activities that need to happen for all children. And having taught in 3 states in, yes, a gazillion schools, and you see it around the world, there's very basic things that we go through as human in human development that's getting short circuited. And right now, Gen Z, is that the right one? There are first digital natives going through the schools. And now our little ones, I think, are getting nicknamed Gen Alpha, maybe. I don't think we've heard it officially. So we've had a whole entire generation now go through. Before, when in teaching the millennials, we were wondering about what was going to happen with the next generation. Now we can kind of see. But what I want you to see in this slide is that at about age 3, we're accomplishing something amazing. We see it in the caves of Lascaux. And I just have to say, that in art history and the way I was taught, that this was always like male bonding and getting ready for the hunt. And about 3 years ago, a scientist was really looking at the hand structure and realized these are women's hands. By the way, moms, all the caves are women's hands, very few male hands. We have to rethink everything we've taught art students for all these years. This is completely amazing. But regardless, what I want to say is, we've interpreted this as people putting their hands up and, this is me, and making a signature. And I love it with 3-year-olds doing the same thing. But actually what it is that you're realizing that a mark can stand for a symbol. Now, we don't come to that unless we are doing a whole lot of scribbling. And it's remarkable when you see, your child starting to process this. Instead of saying, this is terrible, no, it's fantastic, because you have to do a lot of scribbling to get to this point that you come to a huge aha moment, and that is, oh my gosh, this stands for something. I can make this, and they can start naming it and making stories about it. This is stunning human achievement. Now, well, we're kind of not moving through here very easily. Okay. What I want to show you here is, we see this all the time. When you teach small children, they teach you 4 things that you need to do, but I've added the 5th one, drawing and doodling. It's kind of gotten lumped into play, but that's not enough. And it can't be a choice. It's got to be something that your child's doing to be able to get to that point where a symbol stands for an idea. You're going to go through miles of scribbling before you get there. And the only person who can do that is your little kid. So there isn't really much that we really need to do here to make sure that our children are ready for school. It's talking to them constantly, explaining things from the time they're born, reading out loud. We all kind of get that. Of course, serving nutritious food. And see, then we have this play, which Jena was talking about, but all kinds of things get lumped in there. And I'm saying you really need to be mindful now of making sure that that drawing time is not getting short circuited. So the art marks of young children can actually be read very clearly. And I want you to know, because parents feel like if I give my child an iPad and I put the ABCs and I put all this stuff on it, that's academics. No, drawing is their academics, because they're doing all this work themselves. So it's something that they feel driven to from the inside, and you've got to let it come out. They've got to do this work, because this is eye hand. When eye and hand are working together, that is connecting the neurons, the synapses, all of those things that are going on take place when the eye and the hand are working together. So the good thing you need to know is you didn't do a thing to teach them to crawl or walk or grow their teeth. All of that came from within them. And, learning to walk is a hard job. You fall down a lot, but that never bothers a little one. They're just up and running and ready to go. This is the same thing. And here's how we short circuit it. And I've been alarmed, I have to say, when I was traveling at the airports and looking at in the baby carriages now, the carriers putting a phone up there in front of a baby's face. I mean, just the same as I feel like when I see people putting soda in kids' bottles and giving it to them, and I want to rip them out of their hands. I feel the same way about this, because your baby, your little one, needs to be looking out at the world and processing that information. And as they're processing that, they're going to naturally reach for a pen and really want to do that, or a stick in the dirt, all that same stuff. But they have to be engaging with the world to be able to do that. When you're looking at a screen, that is created by an adult. It is a 2D flat experience. It is nothing about this 3D world that they have to make sense of. Okay, children draw first, then they read, and then they write. And what's been happening, and you need to understand this, parents, is that what was first grade was shoved down into the kindergarten age, in the mid 2000s, because all this information just keeps coming, and the colleges push it down, and the high school, everybody, it just keeps shoving down. And yes, kids can do it if they've done the writing and the script, or the scribbling and the drawing and the coloring first. See, it's an easy thing, but you just have to allow for the time. Sorry, this is a very slow process going through here. And I feel like I'm kind of skipping through slides here on this computer. We just managed to get my slides over here. All right, well, I want to talk to you about the stages of scribbling. And actually, there are 3 stages, and they're very recognizable. And it's important to know where your child is, because you can't decide. And the reason I'm talking to you now in April is if you are thinking about preschool and kindergarten in the fall, you need to make sure that your child is very fluent with scribbling and drawing, because they have to work their way through it. And you can't make it happen. And as much as we wish we could skip over it, we can't. And your child's got to work through it at their own pace. If they are always having electronics in their hand, they're not doing this work. This is their academics. So random scribbling, they're using their whole body. It doesn't really mean anything except that it feels great. And it is so much fun to make the marks. And don't be afraid of that. They need to do that. As they start to get control now, Jena, I kind of tripped over the proprioceptive, but this is where this comes into place, because your child needs to know, how hard can I push on that crayon or that pencil before I break it? And lots of broken crayons, well, that's part of it. They need to have that experience. You don't get that with your finger on a screen. You don't have any sense of that. And you're not using all your fingers and developing all those fine motor skills. When your child gets to scribbling and they're starting to interact with it, naming it, and there's a story there, oh, you're going to have a big burst here. And it's just coming along. And this is a great time to interact with your child, not asking what they're drawing, but, oh, tell me about this. Sometimes, this is what's so interesting, drawing is actually the first way that your children are communicating. They're communicating where they are developmentally before they really have the language down. The drawing is going along, and that's where they're having a lot of experience. They may not be able to verbalize to you everything that's going on that they're thinking about, but the words are starting to come around it. The next milestones that we look for, and when I am analyzing kids' artwork at the 4 and 5 and 6-year-old, we're looking at symbolism. And so that's really important, because they've made that leap now. They've assigned meaning to symbols, or the way a symbol is, you've taken a line and you can connect it. So we're going to see the emergence of people, my favorite people, tadpole people. And then they're going to be moving on from that to drawing things a little more recognizable. But I want to make sure that we understand, we're not trying to make kids into great artists. That has nothing to do with it. And yes, I've been accused of that by parents. And it's not that. It's that your child needs to do this work because it's connected to their thinking, and it's connecting their thinking. So when they get to symbolism themselves, now they're going to be starting to understand letters. You can start introducing those concepts. But if a child hasn't worked their way to this point, you can't ask a child to learn beyond where they are developmentally. So you will see the shapes and the colors don't relate to what things look like, but your child has looked at the world, and this is them trying to gain that control. I mean, this is hard, but gaining the control to be able to make sense of that on the paper through communicating through art marks. And what do they see the most in their world? Your face. And that's going to appear because you're the most important thing. And that, when you start seeing that, I mean, you should just feel like really excited. So I never get tired of, come on, let me get my little ones here. There we go. This is tadpole people. And if you would like, on my website, tracycheney.com, go to the preschool tab, and you can download this whole thing of how developmental drawing. So when I will work like with a first grade class, And I ask everybody to draw the same thing, like draw your family. From that, I can tell where those kids are developmentally, who's ready to go on to the reading group, who needs a lot more work. If I see a 6-year-old drawing tadpole people, these cutie pies right here, which I adore, I know that child doesn't have a lot of drawing experience yet. They have a long ways to go before they're actually ready to read and write, but we're going to force them to do that. Um, but tadpole people, you have to look at what your child is perceiving. They're really short. I mean, they're little teeny things on the ground, right? You do look like you have big legs coming out of a head. Yes, they're drawing you as they see you. And they're not really sure about the arms and legs because they don't see the arms. You're holding them, right? But your face has been in their face since the time they arrived. So they do get that sense of face, and they are drawing what they see. This is so important to recognize that. And as they mature with being able to handle the materials, you will start to see the number of fingers coming down. But I love all of them. I love all of them because they have an impression and they're drawing that impression. And remember, kids do not have an analytical brain at this point. Everything is they're soaking it in, and it's run a lot more on emotions, a lot more on magic, what's real and not real, and all of this stuff. Like Jena mentioned, magical thinking, you're seeing this in the artwork. Don't try to correct it. When kids get to this point that they can draw, they recognize now, and we're not teaching this. This comes from observation, their observation. That's why you've got to get the screens out of their little faces. When they recognize, whoopsie doopsie, that people are 6 parts, now they're ready to read and write. But look at the work they had to do to get to that point. Then we go on and we see how, oh, necks. Oh, yeah, their necks there. And so they're working at getting those on there. And the fingers they're counting the digits. And then you start getting rounded fingers. This is a very progressive state of drawing that kids naturally do this if you're giving them the opportunity to do so. It doesn't happen just, for an hour on Saturday morning. Then we see bodies and shapes, because they're not drawing, as you would say, realism, but and I love, the X-ray people that they're trying to add the clothes to it. And when we get to patterns stuff, we are well on our way, but that's where we need to be in elementary school to be ready to read and write. So we are expecting now kindergartners to be able to write sentences in kindergarten. Look at where you need to be in your drawing to be able to do that you've gotten people to a baseline, and that naturally comes through lots of drawing, that they start to perceive the ground and things not floating around. Okay, so are the kids prepared for all of this? Because school has gotten far more demanding, certainly more demanding than when I was there. I won't tell you how many decades ago. It's far more demanding on small children. So they have to be able to have the drawing under their belt to be able to understand what's going to happen. Let's look at what is expected of preschoolers right now. Coming into preschool, there is the understanding that you can draw strokes, and that you can make a cross and diagonals. Circles is the easiest thing. That's why you see people emerge first, because that's easier. And scissor skills, we're not cutting upside down. We're, somebody is taking some time there to teach a little bit about scissors. If your child just loves to cut confetti, let them do it. It's such a great skill they need to be able to have. So those pre-writing skills that we think we're going to just expect kids to write, they need to come having done a lot of coloring and scribbling to be able to do that. So preschools, when you're looking at preschools, it was really surprising to me, and actually why I wrote a book was to help the teachers in my school who were not even being trained in any of this to recognize it. And they weren't really having art centers as such. It's kind of like, oh, if you want to, you can go do that, as the same as sand. No, got to be an everyday thing, not choice. It's everybody needs to be having this exposure, especially when it's not happening at home, especially when preschoolers are spending a lot of time at school and they're not at home. And when they get home, it may be we're doing errands, we've got dinner to do, we've got maybe older kids have sports that we're going to, we are having reading time, we'll read before bedtime. Maybe you can incorporate some drawing time in there, just free draw, just free draw. But let's look at kindergarten. This slide to go. Oopsie doops. Well, okay. Look at what we're expecting now of kindergartners, that they know their ABCs. And I just want to say, parents, kids will pick that up. The drawing is more important, believe it or not. They will pick up the ABCs when they're ready because they've drawn their way to being ready. But there's an expectation. I mean, I'm hearing kindergarten teachers say, I'm having to teach kids how to color. What is going on? You know, just that natural thing of how we grew up with, you know, you're coloring at the table, the younger kids come and join the older kids. All that naturally just happened and we got ready for school that way. It's still the way to get ready for school. So knowing how to color, we can't ask kids just to color in worksheets and color in the lines, but that's what they're going to get graded on. But that comes when you've got control. And when I have kindergartners, first time I saw it, I thought it was cute. They came in and they didn't really know how to use erasers, but they did know how to swipe. And so they swipe at their papers. And at first I really thought that was cute. But then I started becoming more alarmed. I'm going, oh my gosh, these kids do not know how to use erasers. And how hard do I press? I finally had to take erasers away from kindergartners because they would get too precious about it. And now feeling like, because there's the pressure of everything having to be perfect, we are not demanding that of 5-year-olds, believe me. But you have to teach them to draw on and to draw forward. And let's just keep moving it along. So what was kindergarten, what is kindergarten is what is first grade. And you know what? Really, at this age, they don't need less music and less art and less dance. They need all of it, but we've taken it away. And it just kills me. All right. Now this picture is all cuckoo in there. I'm the little girl right in the front there. And it was like, how did we, it's kind of funny, coming in funny. How did we get ready? We played outside till dark. I loved playing in the mud. We climbed trees. We were expected to entertain ourselves outside, not inside. And now, you know, we don't let our kids go in the front yard. I realize that. So that's why you've got to have a great backyard, you know, and we're not running up and down the streets. But we did entertain ourselves with all kinds of stuff. And that was the normal way of getting ready for school. So one of the things, why aren't we giving kids as much art? Well, I find a lot of administrators, well, and I will say too in school, if you didn't have a good experience with art, you kind of don't see the value of it if you haven't been trained. And like I tell you, I mean, even in my master's, there's no discussion of this stuff. We need to make sure that because you didn't feel good about it, that we're not, you know, dismissing it as unimportant for kids. But I will tell you, you draw better than your child, and they will be very impressed if they see you drawing. So don't, you know, it's fun to draw along with your child and maybe having some time, because the screens are very seductive. And I mean, we're dealing with having to change the way school is delivered because of all of this stuff, wanting gamification and all of this and shorter attention spans. But if you spent, you know, it's good for us too to have some doodle time, not teaching your child to draw, but just connecting through, even if you're just doodling and they're doing what they're doing and chatting. Maybe you saw, or at the grocery store and you saw oranges and could talk about the shape and the color of them and all. But this is an emotional experience. And having that and giving that to your child, just being with them, doesn't have to be long, is a tremendously bonding experience. All right. I appreciate the fact that this is a big mission. And if I can get your help to say, if you're going to a preschool and checking it out, or asking at kindergarten how much drawing time. But I want to say this: the schools are driven by the curriculum from the state. Here, I wrote a curriculum for California schools, in this area. So it's like it's a train, and you come to school and it takes off. So if you can enjoy this with your child, even when they're coming home from school, even your 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and 10-year-olds, because there's a whole lot. I mean, I have a whole other talk for that age group and what happens with that, and where things are falling apart for kids. Um, it's really important that we get this message out. So the book that I wrote because of being at a school where the nursery and the preschool teachers weren't, as conversant in this, and seeing it as really important, and to talk with the parents. And a lot of parents get it, and you're not giving art lessons, you're just having the materials out. And let me say, little ones don't need a huge variety. They just need a few colors. They don't need to make a lot of choices. They don't need a 64 pack of crayons. They just need to be doing. So if you visit my website, you can pick up the ebook. You can download. There's in there some drawing milestones. So what to look for at age 2, age 3, age 4, age 5. The kind of things that you should be seeing in your child's drawings. It's just the same as in the schools and in the pediatrician's offices. They have a checklist of, what your child can do at 3. They can go up and down the stairs and all. Same thing. It's part of child development. We just need to make sure that we're not cutting our kids off from doing this thing that's going to have a huge impact on their school success, because math and reading and writing is all tied to this early drawing experience. So that's my message for you, and have just a great time. And just realizing, you can relax about the scribbling and not feeling like you're pushing, you have to have all the numbers and the letters and all that. Enjoy what you see happening with your child, the pleasure that they're getting out of that, and realize that they are communicating with you, not in the verbal language, but in the visual language. And thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm ready to go out. I don't even have little ones anymore. My grandkids are 20 and 16 and 13, but I really want to do my backyard.
Well, we'll have to talk. Awesome.
So everybody, we thank you so much. Listen to the replay, visit our websites. We're in the Facebook, the Workshops for Moms Facebook group. You can pop in there and reach us. And we love to share our specialties, because this is stuff that's dear to our heart. And, we have it there for you too. And, and we wish you, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I will be sure, and Tracy, you too, we'll leave the links to our resources in the comments when we upload the replay.
Right.
So they will be there for you.
Yeah, the chat will disappear.
Yeah.
So that way we'll put them in there, and you can get whatever. You can get both the books and have all of that. Now, next week, we will see you at 10 a.m. on Thursday. Remember, we alternate between morning and afternoon, evening on the East Coast, between those sessions. And we just wish you a happy spring. We all deserve it. Either we've been living under lots of rain or lots of snow.
That's right.
We're ready. So we're going to say goodbye. And then Jena, if you just stay for a minute, and we'll do it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Turn off the recording here. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Tracy Cheney here with Workshops for Moms, and we're inviting you to listen to a recording of our show that was made on Thursday, April, what are we? April
6th. April 6th.
already. Wowie. So I am an art teacher for several decades, and what I'm sharing with parents is the importance of drawing and scribbling and why it's so important and the key that it plays to success in school. I would say that scribbling can get your child to Harvard. What do you say, Jenna?
I would agree. I would totally agree.
Well,
And I'm Jena Jauchius. I'm a landscape architect and nature play expert, and my session was on how to create, or why you would want to create a little outdoor play space at home, a nature-based play and learning space, and how it's going to help your child's nervous system, holistic development, and happiness and well-being.
and and that's what we're about here at Workshops for Moms. So we've got a lot of mom experts. Well, we've got a landscape architect and an art teacher here, but teachers and coaches and people who specialize in all kinds of things around parenting. And that's what we love to bring you each Thursday. And we hope that you will tune in, but catch the recording and get all the good things that you'd like to know in helping your child be successful and have a happy family life.